Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. Perryn Keys here, hanging out with you on the left side of your screen, along with the venerable one, the longtime one, the columnist extraordinaire, Edward Scott Rabalais. We are here on a Monday, gloomy Monday, midday Monday, coming to you live here on the LSU Sports Insider, probably matching perhaps the mood of the LSU baseball fans who probably did not have a great weekend, despite the fact that it was Mother's Day and there was plenty to celebrate. We will get into that. We will get into some Olympic hopefuls and Olympic qualifiers. We will also, of course, get into Paul Skenes. Paul Skenes is the This show is slowly turning into the LSU alumni roundup. Last on Thursday we had Angel Reese. We decided it was pretty important time to discuss all the things that she was doing, jet setting all around the country and getting her professional basketball career off the ground. And speaking of which, Paul Skenes did the same thing. He had a very anticipated start. We will go through that. So with that, Rab, how was your weekend?
It was good. Yeah, spent time with my mother and my wife, who's a mother of three, and my daughters. My oldest daughter is expecting her third grandchild, so that's exciting. So yeah, we had a fun time, a wild time. The grandchildren are 4 and 2. So
you get your money's worth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're a lot for a nickel, but when they're not there, I'm like, oh, they're not here.
Everything is very, very quiet when they're leaving, isn't it?
Exactly.
My mom and dad came in from Florida, so we had a good time, and it's also my oldest daughter's birthday on Tuesday, so we got to celebrate that. And she's 14, so if you all would say a little prayer for me, I would be most appreciative. A little bit of business, as always. Of course, this is the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate and NOLA.com. You know where to find all our writers' great work and join the party. Please subscribe to The Advocate. To do that, of course, you go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. And also subscribe to the LSU newsletter. You know, we haven't even talked about, we probably should do this here shortly because obviously the softball team is going to host a regional this weekend. So there's certainly that we've been reporting on at theadvocate.com as we have all season. And as we say, we've got some Olympic hopefuls coming down the line. Of course, football will be here before you know it. Of course, the football program's still waiting on a defensive tackle, crossing their fingers. They desperately need one. And of course, we're heading down the home stretch too to see if the baseball program can't find a way to sneak into the NCAA regionals. They got a tough putt now. It was tough already, and now it's a really, really tough putt. They got a triple breaker that they're standing over right now. So we'll see if they can read everything well and execute. Anyway, that's a lot to get your head around, of course, and there's always something going on LSU campus. So the best way to stay in touch with everything and keep up with everything is with our LSU newsletter. You get all the headlines delivered straight to your inbox, and that way you don't have to go digging all over the internet. You get all the best stories from The Advocate, which is the #1 place, of course, for LSU sports, and it's all sent to your phone. So to do that, to sign up, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider. Come rain, come snow, come sleet, come shine. We will be here live every Monday and Thursday. We're live on all our social channels, specifically the YouTube channel LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Search for LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. On YouTube, you should be able to find the channel. That way you can subscribe, of course, and you will never miss an episode live or after the fact. You can always catch us after the fact on that same YouTube channel. And if you don't get your podcast that way, if it's a little bit more traditional, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever other finer podcasts are found, and follow along that way. Just search for LSU Sports Insider on Apple and Spotify. Okay, so Rab, I was listening to ESPN has a long-time baseball journalist, sort of a MLB columnist, reporter, insider named Tim Kirkjian, who's been covering baseball for, my goodness, starting with newspapers. He was at the Dallas Morning News, Washington Post. 45 years, probably maybe even a little bit longer than that. And no less than Tim Kirkjian, among many others, was maybe intimating that Paul Skenes' debut on Saturday was the most anticipated debut for a rookie pitcher since Steven Strasburg Steven Strasburg, obviously, he had great stuff. It was a career that was, pretty limited by injuries, of course. But nonetheless, certainly he was the number one pick, just like Paul Skenes. Strasburg was the number one pick overall out of San Diego State. And he was must-see TV. I remember ESPN at the time doing updates on each of his games, each of his starts in the minor leagues before he got called up. And this really is the case with Paul Skenes. There's been a buzz around him since he was drafted, and certainly since he went to rookie ball. And I'm just going to read off his minor league stats. 7 games, 27 and a third innings, 0.99 ERA, 45 strikeouts, 8 walks. So he gets called up to the Pittsburgh Pirates. He makes his debut against the Chicago Cubs. And it's not perfect. He goes 4 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 7 strikeouts, 2 walks. He finishes with 84 pitches, 54 for strikes. And he pretty much gets chased at the top of the 5th. He started to get a couple of guys on. They brought in a reliever who inherited 2 runners, and those 2 runners came around to score. And so it was not a perfect debut, but he was closing in on 5 innings, which would, of course, allowed him to possibly factor into the decision. But long story short, it was a thing. Again, for the second straight week, you've got an LSU alumnus or alumna who's sort of stealing the show, stealing all the headlines on the weekend. So, Rab, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about all this. It's certainly buzzworthy.
Yeah, if Tim Kirkjian says something like that, that really carries a lot of weight. Certainly around here, it was a highly anticipated debut. People have been wondering. I think a lot of Pittsburgh Pirate fans were wondering, when are they going to call him up? When are they going to call him up? And it seemed like they were kind of slow playing him, but it is only early May, mid-May, and they finally gave him the call up. And what does he do? His first batter throws 100-mile-an-hour heat and strikes the guy out. And through that, I think he threw like an 84-mile-an-hour slider, and I don't know if he reminds you. It reminds me of Randy Johnson. The height
from the right side instead of the left.
From the right side. Yeah,
big, imposing, dominating.
He's 6'7", and he can. They pitchers like with that height just get to close the gap between them and the plate
when they release the ball. Yeah, it's just that much closer to the plate.
Yeah, and so much less time for the batter to react. But like you said, not a perfect debut, but hey, it's the major leagues. I mean, it's going to the major leagues. He was pitching in college a year ago. Right. He's striking out SEC batters, and now he's striking out guys who even make more money than people making NIL bucks in college. So a lot more, actually. So a very, very good debut, and I got to throw the gymnastics angle in there a little bit. It was not lost to anyone that Olivia Dunn, the LSU gymnast, his girlfriend, was there watching. I saw her being interviewed during the game, and she was excited. She told the story about how when he got the call to call up, she said, we were taking a nap, and we woke up, and there were lots of phone calls on the phone. And he's like, oh, we got to pack. She said, I've never packed.
I didn't know that. That's a great story.
Yeah. And so, she told that story on television. So it was, but she was clearly excited for him too. And she said, I know how hard he works. And obviously, I always say this: people see the tip of the iceberg, Yeah. But, and then I read something too, totally another aside, but it said he's going to donate money to the Gary Sinise Foundation for every strikeout in the major leagues,
which is not surprising given his background.
No, in his background, he came to LSU from the Air Force Academy, and it talks about going back there, one day to give back. He really. That experience meant a lot to him. It was just coming to LSU was a chance he couldn't pass up. And I loved during the LSU game Saturday, the announcers are talking to Jay Johnson in one of those mid-game interviews, and he said, "How did he do?" 'Cause obviously he's got a game going on. They told him the stat line. He said, 7 strikeouts in 4 innings. Said, yeah, about 2 strikeouts an inning. Said, I miss those days. Yeah,
yes, he's not used to that. Not used to much of that, or as much of that this year, obviously.
But a pretty impressive debut. I mean, was it? I'm going way back. Fernando Valenzuela. I remember he came out in his first game with the Dodgers, and just wow, wasn't that. But Fernando probably spent more time in the minors. He's made a meteoric rise to this point, and the future is very bright for Paul Skenes.
Certainly is. You say why is what makes him such a good? Obviously, everybody saw him here pitch at LSU, and total bulldog, overpowering stuff. But you've seen a lot of pitchers, a lot of players move on to the major leagues, and their stuff doesn't translate. That was seemingly never in. I mean, obviously, was seemingly not in doubt for many teams because the guy went number 1 overall. But seemingly not in doubt because, listen, it's one thing to have heat. It's another thing to have heat along with great secondary pitches, along with command. And that's the big thing, of course, is command. Command wasn't perfect on Saturday, but first six strikeouts. Here was the velocity on those first 6 strikeout pitches. 100.7 miles an hour, 100.5 miles an hour, 100.4 miles an hour, 100.2 miles an hour, 100.0 miles an hour, 99.7. And I know that at some point he came back and hit 101.2. If I'm not mistaken, and for sure, whichever his highest velo strikeout pitch was, that was the highest for any Pirates pitcher of all time since pitch tracking came to be in 2008. So you're talking about, what is that, 16 years? Mm-hmm. 16 years. Think about all the – and the Pirates are not exactly the 27 Yankees and haven't been basically this entire tenure, since 2008. But the fact that, you just – there's some veteran couldn't have stumbled his way in. Some reliever couldn't have stumbled his way into a strikeout that was, that had that much heat. But no, fastest strikeout pitches of any Pirates pitcher over the past 16 years. So that speaks to his stuff. And, of course, we know he's got great breaking stuff and everything like that. And the other thing, too, is that, he's more than ready and willing to go deep. Now, does it mean that he's not going to have arm problems? Who knows? Who knows? Because all these guys wind up having arm problems at some point, seemingly. I mean, the meteoric rise in the number of Tommy John surgeries that has come about over the past, say, 20 years would suggest that none of us has figured this out yet. And these include some of the greatest minds, the greatest scientific minds, all these pitching coaches, all these scouts, all these organizations. They all have somewhat different philosophies, or maybe are all following the same philosophy in terms of how to handle these arms. But it just keeps happening. What Paul Skenes does have going for, I was thinking, they're not alike in sort of mechanics and delivery, but I was just thinking about, like a Dwight Gooden, who just looked so silky smooth when he went through his windup and then unleashed hell, with his right hand. Somebody who, and I guess Gooden probably had some arm problems later on and didn't have the longest career for any number of reasons.
Any number of reasons, yeah.
Yes, but these are guys.
Paul doesn't look like he's. You're
not
laboring.
talking about a violent motion,
right?
Everything looks really, really smooth. It doesn't look like there's a lot of wasted motion and stuff like that. Not that we are pitching coaches, either you and I, but nonetheless, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive, and I think this is going to probably continue as we go down the road. I don't know of anybody who's not going to be interested to see what Paul Skenes does as we go down the road and as he gets his career off and running.
We talk about it many times on this podcast. Yet another LSU athlete who is, we're in this era where there's so many amazing people doing amazing things who are coming at LSU and in their professional career or post LSU career, and Paul Skenes is right up there. And but yeah, I obviously that's the big unknown is right his health and everything. He seems to be a very mature young man. I mean, like I said, he came here from the Air Force Academy, and was is not very demonstrative on the mound. He's never been that much, but just seems to have a good head on his shoulders. And I don't think the Pirates wanted to bring him up this soon, but I just don't think they could deny his talent.
Yes, I mean I think really what it boils down to, and we've seen this. God, I think the most obvious. Practice example of this was when Chris Bryant was. It was just so obvious that he was ready. He was pro ready, major league ready, and the Cubs waited a little bit to start him off to get him going. This has to do a lot of times with manipulating the service clock. If you have him start the season with the big club, then that affects his service clock when his contract comes up, and then now this is a way to hopefully keep him under wraps for a little bit longer. Right. So
But going back to his motion, and he's just so big, and he can just, like I said, come off the mound towards home plate so much.
He's not Chris Sale, 6'2" and 140 pounds, and with a violent motion where you just look like...
There's a pitcher I'm thinking of, named Hunter Gomez, who pitched for LSU a few years ago. Hunter Gomez, both feet would come off the mound when he threw. He just threw his whole...
He was crow hopping, and it was probably an illegal motion, but okay.
Yeah, probably so. But the point is, he was throwing his whole body at the plate, and Skenes doesn't seem like this. If I had to criticize, I'd say, he falls off a lot to the first base side, but that might be something that they work on. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's like Scotty Scheffler's feet. They slide around a lot. Yeah. Someone asked his swing coach, "You're not gonna work on his feet?" Said, Would you mess with that? I don't think they're gonna mess with Paul Skenes too much. But a very promising debut, and one that is gonna have LSU fans following the Pittsburgh Pirates probably more so than they have since Warren Morris played for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
And we're now going back more than 25 years.
It's been a while.
We will continue to check in on Paul Skenes, obviously, and just in case anybody is interested or intrigued, of course, LSU with this, I think we're going to look back and call that. I mean, clearly it was one of the greatest teams in LSU baseball history because, hey, they've got the championship to prove it. They won number 7. But just in terms of the level of talent, I think we may look back and say, geez, I don't know if it was the most talented, but it has to be right up there. Skenes went number 1, of course. Dylan Cruz went number 2, Golden Spikes winner. He's, of course, in the Nationals organization. He's in AA right now in Harrisburg. And he's off to a little bit of a slow start this year. This is obviously his first full year in the minors. 240 batting average, 3 home runs, 17 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 8 walks, 29 strikeouts. So now we know sort of Dylan's hand-eye coordination and his vision at the plate. Wilson Alexander did a great story, of course, you remember last summer.
It's a fascinating story.
Yes, about his vision is sort of supernatural, and his hand-eye coordination is exceptional, and the way he moves his hips to get the most amount of leverage and force and things of that nature. We all believe he's going to get it sorted out. And of course, we all know that as a hitter, hitting is a game of failure. You fail 7 times out of 10, and that's excellent work if you're failing 7 times out of 10. So not a surprise. And really, for that matter, it's more Paul Skenes is the exception more than the rule in terms of how fast somebody's going to get up to the major leagues. And of course, the Nationals are in no hurry to bring him up. Not that the Pirates are doing great, but the Nationals are in no hurry to bring him up because we don't think that they will be in a pennant chase this summer as we go down the road. But we'll keep on checking on Dylan, of course.
Yeah, we went to Reed Darcy and I went to Cooperstown when we were up in Albany for the regional, and saw a lot of plaques on walls of guys who failed 7 out of 10 times. That's right. In their major league careers. But you're talking about Dylan's stats and the way he's batting so far. It's a more typical major professional start. It's kind of skewed by how Skenes is doing, how rapidly he's ascended, how well he did in the minors. I think with Dylan, I would have expected a little better numbers maybe from Dylan Cruz. Maybe he's hitting in the upper 200s or something like that.
He hit something like in the 270s, 276 or something like that last year in rookie ball. So.
Right, a few less strikeouts, but he's in AA ball. It's a fairly high level, and I think it's a pretty typical progression he's on. And I still think I saw Albert Bell, Joey Bell play at LSU. Ben McDonald, all the greats, Todd Walker. He's as good as they ever had.
Yes.
At LSU.
Yes.
And some of those guys went on to truly great baseball careers, and I don't think there's any reason to worry about Dylan Cruz at this point.
What about this year's team? Is there any reason to worry about this year's team?
Maybe we're past worrying about this year's team. Maybe it's like post worry.
We'll get into that
baseball
here in a moment. But just a reminder, of course, this is the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. You know where to find Rab's great work, in addition to all our other great writers: Wilson Alexander, Cokie Riley, Sheldon Mickles, Reed Darcy, all these guys taking care of you on the LSU beat, and in addition to Jim Klein, Peter, and William Weathers. These guys are back in the fold now too. So nobody beats the Advocate's coverage of LSU, and that's always been the case, of course. So you know where to go, you know what to do. If you haven't joined the party already, join the party. Please subscribe to The Advocate. Go to theadvocate.com advocate.com/subscribe. And of course, as we say, always plenty going on around LSU. And of course, there's always breaking news. So if you sign up for the LSU newsletter, you can get breaking news sent straight to your phone. You can get every morning, daily, you can get all the headlines, the latest headlines sent straight to your phone as well. So please sign up for the LSU newsletter. To do that, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. Of course, we are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider on all our social channels, specifically the YouTube channel LSUTigersOnNOLA.com. Please search for LSUTigersOnNOLA.com on YouTube, and you can find our page. You can subscribe. You can follow along. You can tell a friend. You can do all those great things. Leave good comments, nice comments. You can leave comments about Rab's golf attire and how nice it looks and things of that nature. It's important. We handle the important stuff on that
Perryn's shoes. We can't ignore Perryn's shoes.
Hey, man, I like to show out with my shoes. But no, of course, check out our LSUTigersOnNOLA.com YouTube channel. You can follow along, subscribe. That way you'll never miss an episode. You can catch us live every Monday and Thursday. And if you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact. And of course, if you choose to do so another way, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple. That allows us to, that helps us find other LSU fans, helps other LSU fans find us as well. So, discuss baseball, we must. Discuss the current LSU baseball team, we must. Whew. LSU heads off to Tuscaloosa in dire need of a series win. Would have done wonders for them if they could have pulled off a sweep, but they really, really, really needed to win 2 out of 3. And what happens Friday? Well, Friday is, I don't want to call that a microcosm of the season because that was sort of an extreme example. But they melt down, lose a lead in the 9th inning, lose 8-7. They come back, win on Saturday 6-3. And then on Sunday, the bats just don't got to 6 hits. Is that right? I think 6 hits in total for LSU on Sunday on a day when you might suspect that, Sunday afternoon in the SEC, the bullpen tends to be a little bit on fire, but that just wasn't the case. They lose 4-3. So you lose 2 games out of 3. And now, well, we will discuss what this means for LSU's season, which is, on the brink here with 3 games to go. But they really needed 2 wins, if not 3, in Tuscaloosa, and I think we have to start with the most glaring, disappointing game of the weekend, and that of course was Friday night.
Yeah, LSU's got a 4-run lead going to the 8th inning, and they just can't hold it. You've hit the ball, you've scored 7 runs, you pitched pretty well to that point, and you sent out Griffin Herring, and they get 2 outs and then just can't get the last out, and then you have this swinging bunt situation with the bases loaded, and Milazzo throws the ball away at first, and that's it. And maybe it's not a microcosm of the season, but it typifies the LSU's inability to come through in the clutch time and time again to get the third out, to get the clutch hit. And yeah, they did it against Texas A&M, but consistently throughout the season, they've come up short in these things. And it's funny, Perryn, when you look at their stat, LSU's 10-17 in SEC play. That puts them, I think they're 12th right now. In the conference standings out of 14 teams. Their batting average is 8th. Not great, not hitting the cover off the ball, but okay, decent. Their team ERA is 5th. In the SEC, again, not shutting people down, but not terrible. Better than I would have thought it would be. So those kind of stats you would typically go along with a team that's certainly well in the SEC tournament, maybe getting ready to host a regional at the very least, maybe not a top 8 national seed, but getting ready to host a regional. So what does that say? It says that they just can't come through in the clutch time and time again. And Sunday was a good example as well. To give up, they've only won one series finale, I believe, all season long, and 4 runs on a Sunday in the SEC, you should be able to overcome that. Right. And they only get 3 runs. Again, can't come through. They get base runners on, and they run as the second and third with nobody out in the 8th inning, and only got the 1 run across, and so it's. They put themselves in this position. And I will say too, Jay Johnson complained about he wanted batters interference or runners interference on the the swinging bunt in the ninth inning in Friday's game.
Tapper on Friday, yeah.
And it was quickly, he kind of questioned whether it was reviewed. And like I always say, if maybe they got the shaft, maybe they didn't. But if you put yourself in that position to not get help from the officials, you might not get help from the officials, and that's what happened at LSU in that situation. So I understand his frustration, but it was. It was just the opposite of pretty much what LSU didn't need it. They didn't get swept, but they pretty much put themselves in a position to have to sweep Ole Miss, even have a chance to make the NCAA tournament at this point.
And we'll get to that in a moment. In all seriousness, we could talk about a lot. They had chance after chance. They could have swept Auburn, didn't. That's instead of getting 3 out of 3 against Auburn, which is a bad baseball team, you only get 2 out of 3. That comes back to bite you now. Missouri, the same thing. You think you're going to get 3, you got a chance to get 3 out of 3. You only get 2 out of 3 up in Missouri against yes, it was on the road, but and they were playing a little bit better, but it was still a bad Missouri team. These are those losses that come back and just kill you right now. And in a lot of ways, it's, LSU, if there's anything we know about Jay Johnson, he's a workaholic. Well, he's a workaholic. He's going to continue to tinker. We've seen him tinker with the weekend rotation in terms of who's going to pitch when and things of that nature. He tinkered with the bullpen. Okay, these guys aren't working. We got to try. We got to basically, reshuffle, the bullpen and run it a different way. But a lot of these things, you had Griffin Herring on the mound, on Friday. Griffin Herring, I don't think there's a soul alive who's been watching LSU baseball who wouldn't tell you that Griffin Herring's been their best reliever by far. Yeah. By far. Certainly the most consistent, And you can say, well, hey, you should have brought in Gavin Guidry to, maybe nail it down. Well, are you sure? And certainly Gavin Guidry has done well, down the stretch here. He had a couple of key moments in the previous weekends. But it's easy to second guess, and that's kind of what we do, and that's what happens to baseball coaches and baseball managers. They get second guessed when something doesn't go right. But geez, you had your hammer on a mound, or what amounts to a hammer. Guy runs into trouble, puts a couple of guys on base, and then you have a bad throw, and next thing you know, you're done. I'm not sure what you do about that. You made mention of what they had second and third with nobody out, on Sunday, and
in the eighth,
yeah, and so. This has been emblematic of some of the problems that LSU's had basically all year. And Texas A&M, when they took 2 out of 3 against Texas A&M, that was a surprising weekend, obviously. Those things were better. They hit, LSU did a better job of hitting, getting the clutch hit with runners in scoring position. And then they did a better job hitting with 2 strikes and 2 outs, coming up with the clutch hit. And then that wound up, again, being a little bit more the exception rather than the rule, because we have seen LSU. Listen, they were never going to have as much firepower as last year's team. You lose Dylan Cruz, you lose Cade Beloso, and how many other veterans, that were in that lineup that just no way to replicate that, no matter how many All-Americans you were going to bring in. But I do feel for Jay Johnson, at least a little bit, in the sense that, he brought in Mac Bingham. Mac Bingham is by all counts not having anywhere near as productive a year as he had last year at Arizona. And you would have guessed that at the very least, paired up back with his old coach, that he would have had at least as good a year as he had last year at Arizona. The 2 strike hits that aren't there, the 2 out hits that aren't there, the timely hits with runners in scoring position that aren't there. I'm not so sure what you do about that. You figure just sort of in terms of numbers, that at some point you'll stumble into a few more of those, but it just has not happened for LSU. And so I don't know that anybody's going to feel particularly sorry for Jay Johnson, but 26.5% of my heart does go out to him a little bit.
Yeah, it's amazing the pattern we've seen with the last 3 College World Series champions.
Yes. Yeah.
Mississippi State did 1 in 21, did not make the NCAA tournament in 22. Ole Miss wins in 22, does not make the NCAA tournament last year, and now LSU is on the hey, look. Their RPI, people can maybe look at their RPI and their overall record is not that bad. Their non-conference record is very good, which did not portend the struggles they've had in the SEC to this degree at all. They've only lost like 3 non-conference games all year. But just so far down in the standings. If they don't sweep, they're 10-17 right now. They don't sweep Ole Miss to get to 13 wins, and that's not a given. That's not a lock, obviously, that you're going to make the NCAA tournament. Right. This gives you a chance. I think they showed a graphic during the weekend. Teams with 12 SEC wins have gotten in like 3% of the time or something like that. It's a very, very, as Skip Redmond would say, it's a low percentage, chance. So it's not there for them right now. And if you're an LSU baseball fan coming off a national championship, another national championship, you got to go out there and try. Right. You got to give it your best. But aren't you kind of ready for this season to end? I mean, it's not. You don't see this team tearing through a regional.
Maybe you're not ready for the season to end, but you can't help but be discouraged, less emotionally invested by last year at this time you're staring down the barrel of a potential run to a national championship. This year you're staring down the barrel of, if everything goes right, maybe you luck out and you get a number 3 seed to go to TCU or whatever it is. That's a good way down. That's a Terre Haute. How'd you like to go there right around this time of year? I have nothing against Terre Haute. I've been through there many times, but not exactly a destination.
No, you pretty much have to sweep Ole Miss and then maybe do something in the SEC tournament.
I think if you sweep Ole Miss, that gets you to 13-17, which is what we've always said is sort of the line of demarcation that doesn't guarantee you by any stretch of the imagination. It's about a 30, I think it's 38%, some of that effect of teams with 13 SEC teams with 13 wins get into the tournament. But it doesn't mean, and yes, you're right, Rab. They've got a number, I think 33 in the RPI right now. LSU is
34.
But we think that, and certainly the last few years, the NCAA selection committee has placed less emphasis on RPI and more emphasis on, especially in the power leagues. Listen, if you're the 11th place team in the SEC, how seriously are we supposed to take you? So
LSU's got to show something. They got to try to sweep Ole Miss, who they haven't swept anyone all year in the SEC, and then you probably have to do something. You go into that single elimination part of the SEC tournament, and by the way, they only need one win, or I think a Missouri loss will put LSU in the SEC tournament. So they're going to Hoover at the very least. But you're in that single elimination part where anything can happen. You're probably going to have to, come back with, Holman or jump on short rest and try to get that going. It's not a good way to fly, as they said in Apollo 13. It's not a good way to fly. And they haven't shown it all year, so it's kind of hard to expect that all of a sudden at this very late date they're just going to turn it on and sweep Ole Miss and then go in the SEC tournament and make it to the semifinals or something like that. I find it hard to.
That's what I say. I mean, we don't know for sure, but that's why I say you probably have to sweep Ole Miss, just as you said, something that they've yet to do in SEC play, and you probably have to make some noise in Hoover as well, in my opinion. Especially, I mean, we don't know now, but it's perfectly reasonable to assume that one of these sort of American conferences. We saw this last year with Tulane, right? Tulane was having a terrible, terrible year. Turned it on and won the conference tournament, the American Conference Tournament. Right. So that's a bid thief. That means that I can't remember who was out in front, but somebody was way out in front in the American Conference. And they had to get they wound up having to get in that large bid, and so
Tulane
that takes away.
Tulane came here and played LSU in the first game.
Yes, and Paul Skenes pitched in that game.
That's right.
Everything comes full circle. But no, I mean, you can't afford to have a bid bandit come along and take one more spot out of the NCAA regionals. You have to.
The LSU's pretty much going to be that team.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's the way it stands. Ole Miss coming in here. It'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 6 o'clock on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Friday, and 1 p.m. Saturday at Alec Box Stadium to close out the regular season. And
I will say
it's been an interesting one.
I will say, Perryn, too, if I may, you at this point you want to look bigger picture with the program and say, what have they done in 3 years with Jay Johnson? They went to regional. They went to Southern Miss. Got to the regional final, almost won it to get to. I believe they were going to host the regional. Yeah. It would have been Ole Miss again in 22. It didn't quite get to do that, but a good first season. Won the national championship last year, and this year filling in with a lot of talented players and transfers and recruits and stuff like that. I still have a lot of respect for Jay Johnson and everything. It's just it's hard in college baseball to be that successful. And you look at some other teams that have been right up there at the top of the SEC in recent years, also struggling this year. Florida has struggled.
Great example.
They're well below 500. Vanderbilt has struggled. They're well below 500. And but it's difficult. But I think I was kind of expecting more like in the Bertman era of LSU just to reload and go on as it did so many years under Skip Bertman. And it is just tougher to do now. And but I think what it says is you can't just, it's not just automatic.
Right.
And maybe Jay's going to have to make some more changes on his coaching staff. I don't know. Maybe he's going to stand pat, bring in some players, let some players go. But they clearly have missed. There are talented players there. They've clearly, to me, missed a lot of that leadership. Obviously, you're going to miss a Paul Skenes. You're going to miss a Dylan Cruz. But they've also missed the Cade Beloso and Gavin Dugas and Trey Morgan, veteran, experienced players.
Even a Jordan Thompson kind of guy who
Jordan
wasn't
Thompson,
the greatest player, but we all know he was Jay Johnson loved him because he was such a super hard worker.
Exactly. And it seems like to me, like I said, we see the talent and the players on the field, but we don't know what happens in the locker room or what's the chemistry like. And it seems to me like these guys have been looking around all year for someone to come through and be the guy. And it's I go back to the Joe Burrow thing. I don't know if Joe Burrow ever said these words, but after he took that shot in the Fiesta Bowl and then came back and threw that touchdown pass, the next year is like, come on, you guys, follow me. We're going to win some football games. Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, let's go follow that guy.
Yes.
And you have to have that. And they didn't. I don't think they have that this year.
There's no Blair Barbier who was going to get him. This is going back a long time now. But he was the captain of the 2000 championship team, and he was sort of legendarily known as one of the best leaders LSU's ever had. So maybe that component is missing. And maybe listen. You brought in players who had all the talent in the world, and just it's been unfortunate that so many of them, and an inordinate number of them, happen to be having down years. What do you attribute that to? Who knows? But it's been a rough ride, and they're going to have their work cut out for them, as they have all season. But they're going to have their work cut out for them to really, really have to do something that they haven't done yet to be able to give themselves a shot at the NCAA regionals. We're about to wrap it up here, but I did think it was important. I know we discussed this a little bit last podcast on Thursday, LSU's Olympic hopefuls and where they all stand, where most of them stand. But Rab, you had a column this weekend at theadvocate.com about two of the gymnasts, Connor McLean, LSU, the Beam superstar, trying to make her bid for Team USA. And of course, we already know that Aaliyah Finnegan, whose mother is Filipino, that she is
Lena Bell.
Yes, she is already a lock to compete for the Philippines national team. So, just where do they stand, and what are Connor's chances? It's going to be a big week for her coming up.
It is. First of all, the gymnast who isn't Aaliyah Finnegan went to the Worlds last fall in October and finished high enough to where she qualified for the Philippines, becoming the first active LSU gymnast to make the Olympic team. So no small feat.
I guess so. That's right. Yeah,
a historic achievement for her. And so because her mother is from the Philippines, she gets to represent them, although she's from Kansas City. So what a great year this has turned out to be for Aaliyah Finnegan. Kind of up and down during the regular season, but then she had some great moments on floor, and then capped that with the NCAA individual floor title. Haley Bryant won the all-around. She won the floor title in the semis. And, of course, I think people will always remember her for the beam routine. She basically had to stay up. She had to have a 9.6 something, but she just nailed it, a 9.95, and the look on her face as soon as she landed, she knew it. They all knew it, that they'd finally won that first team NCAA championship, and now she gets to go on to the Olympics. And she said she's just she's hoping to. Does she really expect a medal? No, probably not. But the rest of her life, she's going to be an Olympian.
Yeah, go out there and take your shot.
I remember Ruby Harold, who was here a few years ago. She competed for Great Britain in Rio in 2016 before she came to LSU. And she always wore this little necklace with the Olympic rings on it. And they finished fifth. They didn't medal. Very respectable. Yes. I mean, a fifth place finish in women's gymnastics. But but she gets to call herself an Olympian the rest of her life. And I think that's a very cool thing.
I don't think neither you or I will be able to call ourselves
No,
Olympians.
probably not.
My dream of being a track superstar
But she
died.
said her goal is to make it to the all-around final, which is 24 gymnasts, and that would be a heck of a goal. That would be a heck of a goal.
I think but it's a reasonable thing for Aaliyah, given her sort of skill set.
So she is training now at LSU with the LSU coaches to work on these elite skills, things that she said she hadn't done since she was 16 years old. And it's more difficulty than in college. You're trying to be perfect. You're trying to stick that landing and just be as clean as possible with maybe not quite as much difficulty. An example of that is KJ Johnson's vault routine. She has a 995 start value. The best she can get is a 995, but she does one simple flip and that's it. But she does it very well, and that's what they want. That's what they need out of KJ Johnson leading off on vault. And so, but in elite gymnastics, international gymnastics, the idea is to pile up as much difficulty as possible.
More daring.
And as Connor McLean, who I'm coming to, said, I've told people you're probably not going to see me just have a perfect landing if you see me out there. So Connor McLean is trying to compete for the United States. She won the U.S. national all-around title in 2022, a title that Simone Biles won last year in her comeback last year. Connor didn't compete. She had a back injury, so she left elite gymnastics, didn't compete again at all until this January when she started competing for LSU. Had a tremendous freshman season, 3 perfect 10s as the SEC beam champion. As Jay Clark says, her beam routine is world renowned, and especially the beam routine she does at elite level. So now she's in the gym putting those skills back in, and so this coming weekend she's going to this event in Hartford, Connecticut, the Core Hydration Classic, and it's kind of the first step. She said she's got to have like a 51 total, and again, international elite competition is an open-ended scoring system.
It's no longer perfect 10.
It's not perfect 10. Right. It's 13.882 or you never really know. I think it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. She says she needs a 51 in the all-around to advance to the U.S. Championships, which is going to be at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, where LSU won the national title. And then there's the USA Championships, which is in Minneapolis, leading right into the U.S. team trials. So she's going to be there. Kalia Lincoln, an LSU recruit who'll be here next season, is going to be there. And Lexi Zeiss, another LSU recruit who'll be here next year there. And they're all trying to make this 5-person team.
It's as competitive as
it is the hard. It has to be the hardest team in the world in any sport to make, because there's only 5 spots, and you know who's getting one of them is someone named Simone Biles. So there's 4, and you have people like Gabby Douglas has come out of retirement, Suni Lee, who was at Auburn, who's not at Auburn, who finished at Auburn. She won the gold medal in Tokyo 3 years ago. Jordan Childs, who competed, people saw competing in Fort Worth along with LSU.
These are the best of the best.
The best. Jordan Child and Jade Carey is the one I'm thinking of. Okay. Jade Carey as well. Olympians in the 2020 Olympics, the 2021 year because of COVID. So, a very tough task to make this team. But if you do, I think you're pretty much guaranteed at least a team gold medal.
Yeah.
So they're trying. Connor said. She had to give it a try, and she said, "Whatever happens, I will have tried." And and maybe she'll come back in 28 and try to make it again. But it's an exciting time for these gymnasts just to try to get on this path, and even just to make it to the trials. The trials in June in Minneapolis would be really an achievement, because this is going to be a really hard team to make. And so Leah Finnegan's in. These other gymnasts, McLean and Lincoln and Zeiss, they're trying to make that dream happen. So it's a very interesting time.
Good for them to shoot their shot.
Absolutely.
As you say, only a select few can call themselves.
And you never know what's going to happen. They had another recruit, Zoe Miller, who had to drop out. She won 2 gold medals at the Pan American Games last year. She had a shoulder injury. She had to end it. We'll see her again in January for LSU. So it's not easy.
Toughest athletes on campus?
100%, 100%, and you got to smile the whole time too.
Yeah. While your shoulder's falling off.
That's right.
We will leave it there, but obviously we've got plenty to. Listen, no matter what happens with the LSU baseball team, we've got plenty to look forward to this summer as we go down the road. Not only with the Olympics, but of course with all the other sports that will kick back up. So we will leave it there. This has been the LSU Sports Insider. You know where to find, again, all our great writers' great work. We're nobody covers the Advocate nobody covers LSU like the Advocate, and that's always been the case and will continue to be. So if you're not part of the party, please join the party. Subscribe to the Advocate. Go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. Please sign up for our newsletter so you can get all the headlines sent to your phone, to your desktop, to your inbox. To do that, you can sign up at theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. Again, we are here live on the LSU Sports Insider every Monday and Thursday on all our social channels, but specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Search for LSU Tigers on NOLA.com on YouTube. That way you should find our page. You can subscribe. You'll never miss another episode. You will be able to catch us live there on Mondays and Thursdays when we go live. And you can always catch us after the fact on YouTube on that same channel. And if you're maybe in your car, you want to listen to the LSU Sports Insider, you can also download us via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever other finer podcasts are found. This is, of course, you search for the LSU Sports Insider, and you should be able to call it up. Rab, we're heading down the home stretch of the season. We don't have much left. We will have track, softball, and baseball. And then we will go into the summer, no doubt, to talk about football and whatever else may be coming down the line.
Football, the Olympics, 74 days till the opening ceremony. You got the spring meeting coming up in 2 weeks.
That's right.
In Destin. Right. The business, so they'll involve Texas and Oklahoma. Will probably be involved more for the first time. So the ever-shifting college sports landscape is really going to hit home this year. I mean, this is the year of huge changes in college athletics. Huge
changes up to and including the SEC, which is already flush with cash. Now with the ability to get together, all the member schools can get together and start counting their millions because they're going to get just that much more share of the CFP pie as we go down the road with 12 teams and with a distribution model that leans heavily toward the SEC and the Big Ten. So this just in. SEC's got a bit of money and a willingness to spend it. So that's good news for LSU, obviously. We will leave it there. Obviously, for Edward Scott Rabalais, the venerable longtime columnist, and for Amelia Cotton behind the glass, this is Perryn Keys, and this has been the LSU Sports Insider.